Welcome to the Creating Wealth Show with Jason Hartman. You're about to learn a new slant on investing, some exciting techniques, and fresh new approaches to the world's most historically proven asset class that will enable you to create more wealth and freedom than you ever thought possible. Jason is a genuine self-made multimillionaire who's actually been there and done it. He's a successful investor, lender, developer, and entrepreneur who's owned properties in 11 states, had hundreds of tenants, and been involved in thousands of real estate transactions. This program will help you follow in Jason's footsteps on the road to your financial independence day. You really can do it. And now, here's your host, Jason Hartman, with the complete solution for real estate investors.
Welcome to episode 1542-1542, and thank you for joining me. Thank you to all of you folks who are smart enough not to vote for Joe Biden. I think that's pretty easy. And I know there is nobody listening who wants to vote for that guy because he's falling asleep. I mean, it's just, can't our Democrat friends put up a better candidate? Boy, I've seen some pretty crappy Republican candidates over the years, but wow, this is a new territory. It's totally new territory. Anyway, hey, we're going to get enough politics. I'm so sick of politics. I can't even tell you how sick I am of it. But we're going to get to our part 2 of infinite returns with our client, Adam Jackson, who has achieved infinite returns with almost half of his portfolio. You get the money out, you still own the asset, and then you are on the road of infinite returns, and maybe it takes you longer than it took him. He did it in 5 years, but, maybe it takes you 10 years. Hey, if you have an asset that you buy today that in 10 years produces literally infinite return, to infinity and beyond. Hey, that's what Buzz Lightyear said, right? That could be you too. All right, before we get to that, we got so much to talk about. And by the way, we're going to be talking about some of it on Sunday. But many of you have asked about the Meet the Masters recordings. Many of you purchased them already. You already got them. They are in video and audio format, nicely organized. Everything is by segment. You can watch the video online. You can download the audio and take it with you. Super convenient. There are, I think there are 39 sessions. Wowza, wowza, wow. And they are on sale right now at a discounted price, $100 off. And we are going to do that through Sunday, $100 off. So go and grab those at, are you ready? Here it is. You can even remember this, but you should write it down just in case you might forget to go there if you're not going to go right now and get your copy. jasonhartman.com/recordings. jasonhartman.com/recordings. $100 off recordings of our 22nd anniversary Meet the Masters of Income Property Conference. They are there for you at jasonhartman.com/recordings. $100 discount. Get it while it lasts because price is going up. It's going up. All right, a bunch of random things here. We have got a lot of messages, a lot of voicemail from listeners, from various people that I need to share with you, some questions I need to answer. Oh, but I was going to tell you about the Sunday live stream, our Coffee Talk. For Coffee Talk on Sunday, we are going to discuss, among other things, among taking your questions and answering your questions. We're not taking them, we're answering them, we're giving them back in the form of answers. And we're going to do that. But we will definitely touch on the important topics that you're all starting to talk about. This crazy thing that an agency of the federal government unrelated to real estate is trying to put a ban on evictions. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the Center for Disease Control, the CDC in Atlanta, not too far from me. The CDC says they're going to do an eviction moratorium through the end of the year. And now, listen, don't panic. Don't panic. It's really not that big a deal, even if this holds up, which I don't think it's going to hold up because, first of all, do they even have authority to do that? I mean, this is not HUD doing this. It's not Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac saying, if you have one of our loans, you can't evict people. Or if you have one of our loans and you're in forbearance, you can't evict people and stop paying payments while you're still collecting from your tenant. So, they could pull that kind of stuff, right? But the CDC, what do they have to do with real estate? Nada. Nothing. So, and even if they do have the authority, I mean, this thing is being challenged like crazy. It's probably not going to make it. Even if they did have the authority, which is questionable, the question is it even constitutional to do this federal eviction ban? Because think about it. One of the core concepts of our society, and this goes way back to, I think, Thomas Locke was the real expansion, I guess I want to say, the expansion of the thinking of private property rights, right? Your private property rights are like your person, right? It's like your body. You are entitled, you have the right to your property because what is your property produced with? It's produced with your life, your labor. And this is why I find it so incredibly, really just ridiculous and disrespectful that these big, disgusting companies that we all deal with waste our time because our time is also our property. We trade our time for pay. Most of us do. We trade our time for money. And that money buys us things, and that stuff becomes our property. And so when someone is stealing your property or ripping you off in a deal, they're in essence stealing your life because your life only consists of time and they're stealing part of your life. So the next time you wait on hold for 45 minutes getting the runaround from some big disgusting company that's essentially harassing you, they're essentially a terrorist, just understand they are literally stealing your property because your time is your property. So is your real estate. It is your property, right? And so I just can't imagine this thing getting anywhere. But hey, they say that's the deal. Now, of course, it's really not that easy and it's really not that big a deal, folks, because even if it does, withstand the scrutiny of all the lawsuits and the legal challenges, right? Say it withstands all of that, right? The Landlord Association, the National Apartment Association, they're all battling this out with the CDC and stuff. But say it stands up to all of that, right? It's still, there are many hurdles the tenant has to overcome to claim the right to not be evicted for non-payment of rent. They have to be sick. Now I'm just reading this, so don't quote me on any of this, folks. Do your own due diligence. I don't know if you should even waste your time on this, frankly, but if you are so inclined, I think they have to be sick. They have to prove that they are not employed, that they can't pay the rent, and the rent accrues, okay? So, don't worry about this. It's just not worth worrying about yet. This is like everybody several months ago worrying about, not receiving their rental income. And so far, knock on wood, and that actually was wood I was knocking on, just so you know, because we wouldn't want to false advertise here. Yep, that's wood. That's my desk. And so it's turned into a non-issue. Like, it's a non-issue. People are paying their rent. It's working out fine. And, one of my properties is self-managed property, by the way. I got my rent 9 days early. They just send it to me through the banking system. I just get it electronically. It's a beautiful thing. I love self-management. Now, if you have a great property manager, hey, keep them. But if you have a questionable property manager, dump them and join the Empowered Investor Network. the Empowered Investor Inner Circle, I should say, and get on board with us so that you can become empowered and save tons of money and increase your return on investment. Okay, a couple of these messages. Let me get to these, and then we will get to part 2 of our client case study on infinite returns. So first one, and this is just I'm reading a tweet, which is interesting. This tweet comes from Tesla Charts, and it says, fun fact number 1, I used debt prudently and sparingly, saved religiously, paid all student loans and mortgages as fast as I could afford, never used debt to buy a car, paid my credit cards in full every month. Fun fact number 2, I am an idiot. That's what they said. And you know what? As much as I hate to agree with the tweeter, is that how you would say it? The tweeter. Not like in the speaker, like you have the woofer and the tweeter, but the Tesla Charts Twitter account or channel, whatever the right lingo is. I agree with this. It's sad. It just ain't fair, folks. It just ain't fair that people that do all of the seemingly right things get punished. And the people that do all the seemingly, let's not say seemingly right and wrong. Let's say people that invoke the pre-1971 strategy, because of course that's when Nixon temporarily suspended the convertibility of gold or dollars to gold temporarily. And guess what? Hey, it's 2020 and this temporarily is still going on. Try trading your dollars for gold at the Treasury, right? Yeah, good luck. Good luck on that one. You can go and buy some gold, but you can't convert your dollars to gold, not directly. Yeah, that's ridiculous. But that's the way it is. So there's the pre-1971 strategy and the post-1971 strategy. See, two completely different worlds. Yes, pre-1971 and post-1971 strategy. And the fun fact number 1 in this tweet is that this person did all of the right things by the pre-1971 strategy. But by the post-1971 strategy, he's an idiot. And he's right. It's not fair. It's just the way it is. And that's why you need to follow our strategy because, hey, we're going to help you win in the post-1971 strategy world. Okay, let's listen to the couple of these messages that I haven't listened to in quite a while, and I have no idea what they're going to say, but I'm going to play them for you, and then, of course, I will have some comments. They're from various listeners, and maybe there's 1 or 2 from one of our actual investment counselors in here with a question or comment that a client is raising, and let's just go through a couple of these things, and I got a bunch more. We're not going to be able to do them all today, so we'll try to do some more tomorrow or in the near future, but here we go.
Jason Hartman 3D 商投资 You learned how to say Jason Hartman real estate investing in Chinese. So there's your message of the day.
That's Carrie's daughter in Mandarin.
Hey, Jason. So I'm not sure if this was a test to see if I was listening to the podcast or not, but I want to make sure our listeners know that I am not a Dodgers fan, okay? The link I posted about the cars parked, the rental cars parked in the parking lot was at Angels Baseball Stadium. So I just needed to make that clarification.
Well, that was Sarah. That was really important.
To report. I know you've been talking a lot, and you were talking about it before. Lots of other people were about the population shift from cities and more densely populated areas into less densely populated areas. And I'm seeing a lot of anecdotal evidence among my connections here.
This, by the way, is our client, Sean Carroll, who we also happen to hire because he's a professional actor and MC. We hired to MC Meet the Masters. So he made this comment a while back, and he lives in New York City, and he's going to stay because he's a diehard. He loves it there. But he's just commenting on how he's constantly telling me how many moving trucks he sees of people moving out of the city and so forth. So just listen to his comment. And he's purchased properties from us in several of our markets over the years.
New York, and a lot of people that I've worked with in Philadelphia, where I'm originally from, who are indeed doing that every day in my Facebook feed or Instagram, or I get a private message from somebody that I worked with, not just actors, some business people as well, who during this time, maybe they have a second home in the mountains, or this one person I worked with, she's originally from North Carolina, in this beautiful rural community that she grew up in. And her and her husband decided, like, you know what, this is a good time for us to recalibrate. And so they're moving. They've decided, they've already started packing. There's 3 more that I saw last week, people in New York that are performing artists who realized, hey, since theater's probably going to be shut down for a while anyway, why don't I just stay here, work on my stuff? And, there's theaters in this area too. So when they do open back up, there'll be work here, and I'll just pick up some other stuff since I know people here. So I'm just seeing at least a few a day. And if I scale that out, I know that if I'm seeing that anecdotal evidence, I'm sure I'm not the only one. So you probably are not surprised to hear this, but I just thought I'd report, since I happen to be connected to a lot of people who kind of had one foot in, one foot out, like New York already. I was just saying to Tanya, the thought never even occurred to me to leave the city during this crisis. I consider this my home. This is the first place I've lived where I actually feel like I'm home. And I know it's expensive and stupid, and I can get way better places, but I just like it here. So for those of us that do stay, I'm excited to see what kind of deals I can get on rent when this whole thing
prices are dropping for sure.
I would be definitely okay if a few 100,000 people left the city and we didn't see that influx of college kids that come in May, June, and July that jack up their rents on everything, and where they put 7 people in a 2-bedroom apartment and the rest of us can't get one. So I'll be keeping my eyes on it, and I'll report what I see on the ground with rent prices and stuff. They've already come down. Like our neighborhood, the rents, I'd say, since the crisis began, have dropped at least 10%. So that's just been my observation. I expect them to go down further.
Hey, man, yeah, that's cool. It definitely seems like...
So this is Drew Baker. You probably recognize some of these voices. And he is probably going to say something about self-management or something. I'm not sure.
There's going to be a big shakeup in the technology sector, just pushing towards stuff being virtual. I mean, this sort of has given everybody the chance to kind of sit back and reevaluate their business and think about how they can sort of automate things and cut out inefficiencies. And I'll tell you what, man, I'm pretty happy about self-managing. I'm considering firing my property manager in Memphis, and before switching over to anyone else, just try self-managing those properties for a couple months, seeing which ones I think I can handle, and let the other ones.
And by the way, he did do that, and he likes it.
To a property manager, a new one. So, yeah, I'm all on board. I think this sounds great.
Hey, Jason. Hope all is well. Long time no speak. Haven't used this in a while. But so your interview with Ryan Moran from a few days ago, and just want to reach out. Want to say hope all is well. Hope you're staying safe in these crazy times, and always like hearing your perspective on things as you shared on Ryan's show, because you are one of the rational voices during irrational times. So, but yeah, hope all is well, man. Just wanted to say hi.
And I want to let you know, I'm looking across the street from me.
We're back to Sean.
Across the street, that's a high-rise. And there are 3 additional vacant apartments that I can see through the window are vacant right now that were not vacant last week. So, and usually
New York City.
One. And there's a family that lives across from us that I know has been there for a long time, and they moved out. So the migration, I believe, continues.
All right, we'll stop it there because we got a lot more to cover with our part 2 of our client case study today. So remember, jasonhartman.com/recordings to get your discount just for a few days here, ending on Sunday, to get your discount on the Meet the Masters recordings, video and downloadable audio. All there for you, jasonhartman.com/recordings. And now back to part 2 of Infinite Returns with our client, Adam Jackson. Do you want to talk about, any thoughts being in your industry, being in aerospace and the economy and what's going on? You said that you've been doing very well through all this. Your properties are obviously doing very well. So congratulations on that. But just, we all want to know what's coming next. What's the real read on things that are going on in the world? And this is very uneven, this whole economic situation. And it's very sad. A lot of people are struggling, but a lot of people are just doing great at the same time. It's really mixed. Mostly in a recession, it's like 80% of the people will be suffering. But this time it's like 50-50, or maybe even better than that in terms of most people are doing pretty well, 60-40 or something. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually very interesting to me. As somebody who works in the aerospace industry, there's a lot of technology and up and coming programs, I guess, that are expanding upon these, and different militaries are working with one another. So, I mean, militaries are definitely going to continue to increase, especially with the way the political landscape is today. But yeah, if you're a professional and you have the ability to work from home, you are definitely in much better shape, especially if you're within an industry that is getting some sort of government funding in particular, or, has some sort of market need where whether it's some sort of a digital transformation or technological, I guess innovation is needed. So I definitely think that's a factor. But Jason, I would also like to ask you, I mean, how do you feel about this as far as the fact that you have a stock market that does some sort of a flash crash, it seems like, comes right back up, maybe going back down. At the same time, we have these interest rates that are incredibly low, and we have a housing boom. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a lot of sectors in the economy that are just detached.
Yeah, they are. You're absolutely right. The stock market is just fake. I mean, it's smoke and mirrors. It's just a totally fake thing. So they've obviously propped it up with all the money creation. I think we're up to about $5 trillion now. This is absolutely unrecognizable in history, what's going on. There's just no comparison. But like I've said, and you've heard me say, I don't think the chickens are coming home to roost anytime soon in terms of the ability for the U.S. to create fiat money. This is a thing. It's like interesting because I was listening to Peter Schiff yesterday on George Gammon's show, and Peter's been on my show before. I got to get him back on, but he's so interesting to listen to, but he's so wrong. I mean, he's just always wrong in the sense, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like divided. He's not always wrong completely, but he's talking about, again, that I've heard him talk about for the last 15 years, about how the dollar's over, the dollar's going to crash, the U.S. is going to lose reserve currency status. And I'm thinking to him, I want to say, well, obviously compared to what? These people love to say the U.S. is in such bad shape, but compared to what? I mean, who's going to take over the reserve currency status? If not the U.S., who is in better shape than we are? Exactly. And there's nobody. I mean, it's definitely not China. China is a disaster and a half, and it's going to only get worse. I mean, yes, they've had a miracle for a few decades, and if Trump is reelected and the continuation, we have this continuation of moving jobs back onshore. I mean, China is going to suffer from that. No question about it. And China is, running a fake economy in a huge way. They're manipulating their currency like crazy. They've got 10 more years until they have a giant demographic cliff, as Harry Dent talks about. That's actually the title of one of his books. And China is not the thing. And now after coronavirus, nobody trusts China. Their trust level on the world stage has just been massively diminished. I was there last year and it was really enlightening. I loved it. I would totally love to go back, and then with what they've done in Hong Kong, clamping down on the protesters and so forth, China is not going to be the thing. It's certainly not going to be. Let's go down to number 3. Japan? Are you kidding me? I mean, giant demographic cliff. Also, country literally will not exist in 70 to 100 years. Mm-hmm. There won't be any people. You can't have a country without people. They're not having any children. They have no immigration to speak of. So, the country will just evaporate. It'll just go away. And so it's not going to be China. It's not going to be Japan with 230% debt to GDP ratio in Japan. Is it going to be the Eurozone? Europe is a disaster. What is it going to be? Germany? I mean, is it going to be the UK? No way. There's nobody to take the place of the US. It's absurd. These arguments.
Have good reason to be bullish on the US and even more bullish on US real estate. I just think it has a great runway, and especially with all this money printing, I think that we're going to benefit as real estate investors.
You're certainly right. And by the way, I just want to make the disclaimer. I am by no means suggesting that the U.S. is perfect or anything. It's a disaster. It's just comparatively, compared to what is the big question. And comparatively, it's in much better shape than any other major country. Okay. There's just no comparison. So that's that. But, what do you think about the demographics of the market in terms of home buyers out there pushing prices of the properties you own and I own up, because there's a lot of buyers, but also renters? Now we don't have to just talk about millennials anymore. We can talk about Generation Z. They're starting to come up into their own. And these are huge demographic cohorts. I mean, the population is giant. As I remember one time it was gross when I was maybe in junior high school. In one of our classes, maybe it was like biology class, they had a big snake, and they fed it a mouse. And I watched the whole thing. And what's interesting is you watch that long snake and then that big lump of the mouse going through the snake's body. It's just gross. I'm sure people have seen this. If not, look up a video and you can see it happening. But that's how the demographics are in the US. We've got these giant lumps of demographics, 80 million millennials, okay? And they're moving into their spending years, and they're going to move into a giant wealth transfer era where that wealth is going to be transferred from their parents as they pass away. So, wow.
It makes me wonder, well, is there really any stop to this? I mean, are the prices in certain areas, of course, going to keep improving? Because based on everything you just said, there's a good likelihood that happens. Yeah. Now, I think it's also important to make a distinction between which of those markets are going to benefit most. And I think we know what most of those are. Yep. But I mean, I can tell you an example. I have a brother who lives in Brooklyn, and he was just recently looking for a new lease. So he moved. And what's incredible is the downward pressure you're all seeing on rents in that area.
All of our clients who live in New York City or the surrounding areas like Brooklyn, they say that there are just moving trucks everywhere. They're just people are just fleeing the city. And if not, like your brother stayed in and he probably got a huge upgrade for a lower price. Like literally people are moving from 1-bedroom units in New York to 3-bedroom units for the same price. It's amazing what's happened, how these cities, and I don't want to just say New York, but San Francisco, LA, they are all in collapse mode right now. Yeah, go ahead with what you're saying though.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think in his case, he ended up getting another bedroom, and I think the overall rent dropped by about 10%. So, just kind of give you an idea there. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, though, what's happening also in the tri-state area. So when talking about New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, I've actually seen a good amount of price appreciation in areas of Connecticut and things like that. But that's because people are leaving the city. So, relatively speaking, that's an improvement for them.
You've got the moneyed people in New York City who have left and they've gone to, Westchester County, Connecticut, the Hamptons, and they're definitely pushing prices up there as their money floods out of the high density areas. But again, those properties wouldn't make sense as investment anyway because they're just too expensive to ever get a decent rent to value ratio. So what we're looking for is the middle and lower middle class tenant there's a flood of money going into these cities and these type of properties that make good sense as rental properties. And our investors like you, like me, and hopefully everybody watching and listening are really profiting from that, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, I would say so. And again, none of us, I feel like we wouldn't have been able to predict this. We were sort of in a mode just in recent months where it was, okay, well, let's hunker down, let's get our reserves in place and let's see what happens. But yeah, I mean, really what's happening here, especially going to the cities in which we invest, where there's job prospects and where there's business friendly areas and jurisdictions. I mean, again, we're all going to be set up very, very well if we continue to purchase there and dollar cost average there.
I completely agree with you. I know you use Property Tracker, and that's great that you're using the software. Are there any other apps or tools or, resources you're using that you want to share with investors?
At this point, really, I pretty much just use the Property Tracker. It's really all I need. I mean, I use things like Zillow and Trulia and things like that just to kind of get an idea. But for the most part, that's really kind of what I'm using. Shadow Stats is something that I've really been starting to look at a bit more, which I think is great. We had the founder, John Williams, on the show before. Okay, very cool. And so I pretty much, I think when something works, I like to double down on it. So, and for instance, and I don't even think I've talked about this yet, but one of the things that I do at this point, since I've reached my maximum loan slot amount for Fannie Freddie, is I take a certain grouping of properties, I refinance out into a non-QM mortgage product or loan
which
product.
Means qualified mortgage. Go ahead.
Correct. And then what I do is I free up those Fannie Freddie spots and I put down 15% on the next properties that I buy. And that's all I've been doing at this point. So, I like to use Property Tracker just because we look at these initial canned pro formas, but when you're putting it down a different amount, I really kind of want to see what the projection is going to be on that, especially 15%. That's a bit different from the 25% down, especially because you're going to just accelerate your total ROI. So
that's fantastic. So you mentioned, and I didn't even ask you enough about this, so sorry about that. We got to talking about other things, but the infinite returns on almost half of your portfolio, you say you're getting infinite returns. What does that mean? I mean, I know what you mean, but I don't know if people listening know what you mean. So tell us more.
Yeah, of course. So infinite return basically means that the money that I put down to initially acquire the property, I have gotten that back in returns, but I still hold on to the asset. So, So for example, I have one property, actually it was in Memphis, and this really was the first property I ever bought. But I put down $25,000 initially to purchase it. It was originally $100K when I bought it, and that included the closing costs as well. So I put 20% down. Well, fast forward 4 years, it's been an excellently performing property. I get cash flow every month. It's been the same tenant, by the way, every time. And I just did a cash out refinance, pulled out $24K, and my payment went up only by $20 a month because the interest rate went lower. So for $20 a month, I get $24,000 back out. I still hold on to the asset, and it still cash flows $300 a month every time.
I love income property. It is the best thing ever. What you're talking about is phenomenal. I mean, you get all your money back and you still own the asset. Where else can you do that, folks?
Yeah.
I mean,
and not only that, but I mean, let's keep in mind that when I did the refinance out, I initially put down 20%. I refinanced out and now have a 75% loan to value. So I still have all of that equity that sits in that property in addition to the cash flow every month and the loan pay down. So there's no telling what that property is going to actually return in the future.
Excellent. Good stuff. Well, Adam, first off, thank you for your service, and thank you so much for sharing your story too.
Oh, thank you.
And service, I mean military service, of course. And just anything else you want to share with listeners or viewers a question I didn't ask you or anything, or maybe your plans for the future, whatever. It's all yours.
Yeah, well, I mean, plans for the future, I'm just going to continue to buy. I mean, once I find something that works and works well, there's no reason to try and reinvent the wheel. So I'm going to definitely continue to increase the portfolio, hopefully at an accelerating rate. And then if I could add anything else, it would just be get in control of the asset. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing. You can always renegotiate the deal after you have it.
Right.
But the most important thing is to get that money to start working as quickly as you possibly can, because that's when all of these other opportunities and options begin to show themselves and become available to you.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Adam, thank you so much. We really appreciate having you on the show. That was a great client case study, and glad to have you back on the show. Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes. Be sure to check out the show's specific website and our general website, hartmanmedia.com, for appropriate disclaimers and terms of service. Remember that guest opinions are their own, and if you require specific legal or tax advice or advice in any other specialized area, please consult an appropriate professional. And we also very much appreciate you reviewing the show. Please go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio or whatever platform you're using and write a review for the show. We would very much appreciate that. And be sure to make it official and subscribe so you do not miss any episodes. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.